Hello friends, welcome. Today I have 4 fantastic fall DIYs with a little twist. There's a little twist in the middle of the video that you're not going to want to miss. So let's get started crafting. We are going to start our first DIY with this chunk of scrap wood that came from the dumpster dive. If you have not seen the dumpster dive video, I'm going to link it in the description box below. It's pretty entertaining, so you might want to go watch it. This is a heavy chunk of wood, very solid, and then we're going to use the pumpkin mold from Hello Pumpkin. It's an IOD mold. It's a very beautiful mold. It's a thinner piece, but we're going to use it with this chunky piece of wood. Now I'm going to make all of these pumpkins today look like metal or a little galvanized or whatever. So we're going to use this gray that I mixed up. We're going to use some beadboard. We're going to use a little black dress by DIY and some metallic by Folk Art, metallic silver by Folk Art. This was some aged gray by Rust-Oleum and a little bit of old school that I mixed in with it, old school by DIY. And I'm just going to paint this entire pumpkin piece and the leaf with this gray. And it went pretty fast with the magic of editing, but this paint went on this mold really smoothly. Now I'm going to put all my little paints in this little plastic piece that was going to be thrown away. I don't throw anything away because it's potentially a little paint palette. And I'm going to mix a little bit of gray, a little bit of white, so that I have a very, very light gray. And I'm just going to pounce it all over with a makeup sponge. You could do it with virtually anything that you want. I just prefer the look that you get with the makeup sponge. And you can see that I'll pounce it on my little silicone mat that I work on. And then I'm going to pounce it all over this pumpkin in the little nooks and crannies. Then I'm going to add a little bit more white to it. Then I'm going to dab it all over, and then I'm going to add a little black to it. And then I'm going to add a little more gray to it. Then I'm going to add a little more white to it. I'm just going to keep adding the colors until it looks like I want it to look. And at the very end, I'll add that metallic silver to give it that metallic look. Gee, how that works. Okay, so I'm going back. See, I'm going to add, and I never clean the sponge. I keep using the same sponge. So I've got all those colors in the sponge. Now I'm going to use a clean sponge, and I'm almost like dry sponging a little bit. Like I don't want gobs of that color on there. And so I keep dabbing back over on the part that I dabbed off. I'm dabbing on, dabbing off, and just putting it all over the pumpkin and the leaf to get the look that I want. Then I'm going to take, once it's completely dry, I go in with some clear wax by DIY. Now, I get all my DIY products from Sammy over at Unicorn Dust Designs. UnicornDustDesigns.com is her website. It's linked in the description box below in all of my videos. And I'm going to use some of the DIY barn quilt. Now, this is a JRV cottage color. And it's a little different than the regular DIY paints. It is an all-in-one. It has a sealer in it, and it has a different texture to it as well, but it needs a really good stir. So I give this 2 good coats. This was the first coat. This is what it looks like after 2 good coats. I absolutely love this piece of wood. Now I'm trying to decide where I want to put this beautiful silver pumpkin. Do I want to have that little knot in the wood, that little split in the wood? I really did kind of like how it looked, but I really liked this side and with that little knot in it and the way that the wood grain went sideways. I don't know. I just really liked this side better. So then I'm going to take my little finger sander and I'm going to sand the edges just a little bit. I don't want it to look too terribly rustic, but just a little bit, okay? So I'm going to sand the edges down a little bit. I'm going to sand around that knot hole a little bit, and then just across the top. Now, I put my pumpkin on there so I could see what was going to show. I don't want to, you know, do any extra sanding than I have to. Then I'm just going to take a paper towel and get all the crumbs off. I'm going to use my Tite Bond Quick and Thick to glue these pieces down. This stuff does exactly what it says. It glues, it's thick and it glues quick. So I'm going to, sometimes I use hot glue to help it hold quicker if I'm going to be working with it, but this is the last step. So I'm just going to put it on there, and it dries within minutes, just a couple minutes. And you have not a complete hold, but good enough that you can move it around. Like I can pick it up and move the piece around. So this is how it looks. And although I love how it looks, I thought it needed a little extra something. So I had this little black and white gingham ribbon, just some little scraps of it in my drawer. So I thought I'll just make a little border with it. Just put a little on the bottom, and I didn't have very much. I just had a few little scraps, and I had a couple little bows that I had made previously and didn't use them. So I thought, well, I'll glue this little bow up there, and I almost tried to piece together another strap across the top, but I decided that was too much, and I ended up loving it like this. So let me know what you liked better, with or without the bow. This DIY is so easy. This is an old piece of fencing that someone gave me, and it's the IOD smaller pumpkin mold and a piece of tin foil. I'm just taking my finger sander, I'm sanding off around the edges where I cut it. I cut it down to this size. I cut it where those 2 screw holes were exactly where I wanted them, so I can make a little hanger. And then I'm going to sand off all the dirt, and you'll see when I flip it over what I'm talking about right there. So I give it a good sanding to get all that little dirt and grime off, and then I'm going to spray it down with some disinfectant and wipe it down, and then I'm going to put it outside in the sun to dry. And in Texas right now, it's 100 degrees or better, so it will dry super fast, but I left it out there for a couple of hours so there's no germs. Now I'm going to use a little bit of our Tite Bond Quick and Thick and spread it all over the top of this pumpkin. This is a method that I absolutely fell in love with. It was just kind of an idea that came to me, and I don't know that I've seen anybody do it. If someone's done it, I haven't seen them do it. I'm going to just take this piece of foil. It's just regular aluminum foil. If I had it to do all over again, I probably would use a heavy-duty foil instead of the thinner foil. But I thought the thinner foil would show the details a little better, but I think the heavy-duty foil would do just as good. But I'm going to wrap it around, and then very carefully, this is why I think the heavy-duty foil might work better right in this to not rip so easily right here. But when wrapping it around these little tedious parts, like with this peduncle. So it works though, like where I had a little space where it ripped, I just glued another piece on top, and you can't even tell because it's kind of all wadded up. And so I just pressed it all down around, and then I'm going to press it firmly all over the entire pumpkin until you can see all the details. And you can see I'm just ripping off a little piece. I'm going to put some glue right there, and then I'm going to just stick a little piece on there, glue it down, and nobody but me and you know that happened. Now I'm going to press with my fingers firmly but carefully until you can see all those details. And then I took a pencil eraser and when it got a little bit down in the details a little bit more, because I couldn't get down in there with my fingers. So there you can see I just used the edge of that pencil eraser and got down in those details to bring out those details. And now for the magic. We are going to use some DIY dark wax and just rub it over. Now it doesn't absorb in like it does when you use it on top of paint. But if you just let it dry, it will. So I'm just putting a lot on there. Like, not a lot in quantity, but a lot like in the crevices. And then I just wiped back so it wasn't, you know, pooling everywhere. Now I'm going to use Shipwrecked by DIY and a little brush. You could use your cloth as well. In a future DIY on this video, I do use a cloth, but you can use a cloth as well. And then I'm just going to put it in random places so that it looks, you know, kind of old and patinaed. Patinaed, is that a word? Sure it is. I live in Texas. We can make up our own words. And then I'm going to use that cloth that I had the dark wax on and just tap, tap, tap very gently. And then I'm going to use that same cloth and go over this piece of wood to seal it. And then we're just going to glue that pumpkin to the wood and put a little gingham bow on top of our hanger, which I did not show you. I did not get it on camera, but you just put your little hanger, wire hanger or ribbon hanger through your holes, and you have this very simple, very cute pumpkin DIY. Okay, I promised you a twist. Here's the twist. You say, but Kendra, I don't find scrap wood. I don't have IOD molds. I can't afford them. They're expensive. Yes, they are. Okay, I'm going to show you how you can make very similar DIYs using Dollar Tree items. Yes, you can. Let's get started. Let's use a Dollar Tree canvas and a fake wooden pumpkin decor piece. Now they have those canvases at Dollar Tree all the time, and you can find pumpkin decor pieces at Dollar Tree every year during their fall decor season. I'm choosing to use this one. I decided that I was going to sand off this little E. For whatever reason, my paint was dark enough to cover it up, but I don't know why I decided to sand it off, but I did. Now I'm going to use the same barn quilt because we're trying to replicate our original piece. I did 3 coats to get that to cover that canvas piece. And I painted that pumpkin with that same gray as we did our original pumpkin, our mold. And I'm doing the same exact technique on here as I did on the mold. You just pouncing all the colors on until we get the look that we want, the dark, the white, the gray, the light, and then finally the metallic, and then sealing it with clear wax by DIY. And here is our final result. I think it looks great. I gave it a thumbs up. Yes, sealing it with our clear wax by DIY with the makeup brushes that I get on Amazon. I have them linked in my Amazon store in the description box if you're interested in purchasing some. They are amazing for stenciling and waxing and painting and all kinds of things. Now I'm kind of placing it on there to see how it's going to fit. And this is what the canvas looks after I painted 3 coats. I didn't have very much of this ribbon left, but enough to give us one little strip across the top. And I'm going to glue that down across the top. And then we're going to put the pumpkin on. Now I had some black and white baker's twine that I picked up at Dollar Tree, and I've had it for a while. You also can get black and white baker's twine on Amazon or at Dollar Tree. So I was trying to figure out where I wanted to put that bow. So I decided I'm going to put the bow up there. I'm going to take the baker's twine, wrap it around the little peduncle stem, whatever you want to call that, and just tie a simple little knot right there. And I kind of like to do it over to the side. You could do it in the middle. You can not do it at all. but I like the way that looks. So we're going to glue our little bow up in the corner. You could put it on the pumpkin if you want, but we're trying to make it look similar to our original one. And we're going to use some Type Bond Quick and Thick, again, my favorite glue because it works so good. And I may have put a little too much glue because when I put it down on our canvas, it kind of oozed out a little bit. But that's okay. I would rather have too much and have it stick than not have enough. So I'm kind of pressing it down on that canvas good, and see there, it kind of oozed out a little, but we can wipe that off. And then I'm going to put a couple little Dollar Tree clamps on there to hold it until it is done. And I think this one turned out pretty good. Let me know what you think. Okay, so hang with me on this one. These planks come from Dollar Tree. You get 6 in a pack, and they're a decent thickness, but because we want it to look a little bit more like our original piece, we're going to glue 2 of them together. And we're just going to spread our glue all over, and then we're going to clamp 2 of them together. Now, Dollar Tree does have the, I'm not sure if I say this right, I say Aleene's tacky glue, and it works really good for this. I've done it numerous times with these wood pieces. And then I use my little Dollar Tree clamps to hold it together until it dries. And then I'm going to sand the edges in case there's a little excess glue and get rid of that. And then I'm going to take Dark and Decrepit from DIY and a sponge, and I'm just going to do front, back, and sides with this sponge and stain this wood piece so that it's going to resemble our little piece of scrap wood that we had in our original piece. Now, in case you don't have a drill, we're not going to, oh, I did this off camera that I sanded it, and so I'm just showing you that I sanded it. But if you don't have a drill, we're not going to drill holes. We're going to do an alternative way to do that too. Now, these little pumpkins you can get at Hobby Lobby or at Dollar Tree. Now, I traced around this. I don't know what I was thinking. So you can paint this on just in case you don't have foil, I guess, because in the end I use foil. But just in case you don't have any foil, you can paint and use that same technique we used. Yeah, so I went to the trouble to do this and then waxed it, did the whole thing, okay? And after I finished the entire thing, I put a little bow with the baker's twine, and then I made a little hanger. I put 2 pieces of that baker twine together and put a knot on each end so that it would, I would have something to glue down on the back. Made a little hanger. You could use a wire. You could use wire. You could drill holes and do the wire hanger. If you have some wire and you have holes, I don't know if Dollar Tree has any of that kind of galvanized wire. Let me know in the comments below if you've ever seen that at Dollar Tree, if they have any wire. And I like to put a little piece of cloth. I love my canvas drop cloth, but I like to do that just to give it a little more stability. So this is what I ended up with. And that was cute, but it really wasn't like the original piece, because that original piece had texture to it. So I decided that I needed to, well, I had to sand this off because it was going to show behind this little wooden piece. So I ended up sanding and using a wet wipe to remove the paint that was going to show behind the wooden piece, okay? Hang with me now. Hang with me. I'm going somewhere with this. And then once I got it, I used the Dark and Decrepit and just went over it again to, you know, fix my boo-boo. And then I took my hot glue gun, my fine tip hot glue gun. You could use a regular hot glue gun. It would work just as good. And I made like lines where you would have lines on a pumpkin. Like I made details. I made my own details. So this was easy. You just have to use a steady pressure, Okay, make lines in there, make some details, and hot glue dries fast. Just wave it in there like you really do care. Okay, then I got my tin foil. Then I decided I wanted to kind of crinkle it up to give it a little bit more wrinkles in there, so the dark wax would sit in those wrinkles a little bit more, okay? So that's what I did, and then look when I press down in there. It's like magic, y'all. It doesn't take much to impress me, okay? So now I'm going to take my scissors and I'm going to cut around this. And like I said, you know, if I can suggest something, I would suggest going ahead and using the heavy-duty foil if you have it. I did have it, but I didn't use it. And then it's going to be the same process we used with the mold. We're just going to glue that down to the back. I made little snips all the way around, which is totally not necessary. I used to bake cakes, and I would cover my cake boards, and this is what I had to do. But this foil would just wrap right around your pumpkin. You do not need to cut those slits. In fact, the slits almost made more boo-boos where it tore. See? Yeah, so I had to repair a couple little places because it did that. So I would suggest not doing those little slits like I did. So just putting down some glue and smearing it out to the edge. And I love my little silicone. Anytime you find those little mini silicone spatulas, grab you a couple and keep a couple in your arsenal. Yeah, I ripped that, but it all worked out. The foil is so forgiving. Like you can just mash it and poke it and glue on top of it. And it's almost like paper mache or something like that when you're doing that. You just put some on top of it and you can't even tell. So I pressed it all down around all the details, just like the other one we did, and putting the dark wax on, and then did the shipwrecked for that verdigris look. And I really, really like how this turned out. So I felt like this looked more like our original piece that we're trying to imitate. And I went ahead and used my cloth. This is just an old t-shirt that I cut up. It was an old t-shirt that was going in the trash, and I just cut it up and used it. So I think this one turned out really good. So I liked it way better. So I'm going to sand that back down again a little bit around the edges, just a little bit. And so it looks a little bit distressed. Clean up my space, get rid of all the crumbs. I can't work can't work with all the crumbs. And then we're going to just use our Type Bond, a little bit of hot glue so it stays in place. And stick that down there. And I kept debating whether I wanted to put that little bow back on there. I kept taking it off and putting it back on, but I felt like it was covering up all those really cool details right there. Like I love those little details. So I thought about putting it up in the corner, and I just decided to leave it off. Just leave it off. So let me know what you think about this. Okay, let me know in the comments below what you thought about the twist and being able to make very similar DIYs out of Dollar Tree items. Let me know which was your favorite, but most of all, I want you to remember to be still and know that He is God.